Hello gang, and welcome back to another edition of the New Ham. My name's Scott, call sign is W4OLB. Today I want to cover a couple things, one of which is make sure that you go over to the FT4XR review video, get your name in the hat for the drawing. We are drawing for that tomorrow, Friday, March 28th, so you still have a little bit of time. I'll leave the link up in the right. And the second is I want to talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, and that is COVID-19 and how that applies to us as folks in amateur radio. So stay tuned. All right, thanks for sticking with me. I need about 5, maybe 10 minutes of your time today. Do me a favor, watch the whole video. It does a couple of things. One, I want to make sure that you get all of the information. 2, it helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Second, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Hit that thumbs up button. Share with your friends. This is going to be some valuable information for you today. One of the things that I have done is I've gone over here to the cdc.gov website so I could share a little bit of information. There is a ton of stuff out there. Some of it's good information, some of it's bad. I want to clear a few things up, but what I really want to show you is why it's important that we treat COVID-19 as a very serious virus and not like we would treat the common flu. So let's jump over here. So what I've done is gone to the CDC website and just looked up the flu statistics. And you'll see in the blue box there that I've highlighted a little area in gray that says the CDC estimates that so far this season, there have been at least 38 million flu illnesses, 390,000 hospitalizations, and 23,000 deaths from the flu. So those are solid numbers. Now, just to give you an idea of where we're at, 38 million is a little more than 10% of the overall population in the United States. But what's interesting is there were only 23,000 deaths from the flu. Now, I say only, not to diminish the fact that 23,000 people died, but to kind of give you a sense of what the difference would be between COVID-19 and the flu if we just look at the numbers. So if we look at 23,000 deaths and we divide that by the 38 million people who contracted the flu, you get 0.0006. We multiply that times 100, and that gives us a percentage as far as mortality rate. And mortality for the common flu is 0.06%. It's a very low percentage as far as the number of people who will succumb to the flu. Now remember too, some of that is also complications from other underlying illnesses as well as the flu, much like the coronavirus. Now, what I want to look at is plugging in a few things here using that model. So number one, 38 million people get infected with the flu, and the reason they do is because we treat the flu with a lot less caution because of the low mortality rate. We go about our normal daily business and our normal routines, and we don't think about it when we have the flu. We take some over-the-counter medication, we go on, we go grocery shopping, we go to work, we pick up our kids from school, we do all of those day-to-day activities. However, that results in a widespread of the flu virus, and that's why so many people get it. Now, they've told us that we need to social distance and we need to make sure that we are keeping trips out into public and keeping gatherings to a minimum. And here's why. So if we took 38 million people and we said, okay, coronavirus is fine, everybody can go out, don't worry about it, and we continued to live a life normal as we would with the flu, this is what would end up, or could potentially happen. The infection rate would go up. However, what you have to remember about COVID-19 is it has a mortality rate of somewhere between 2 and 4%, and that's just from us tracking it globally. So we're going to hit that right in the middle at 3%. So if we take 38 million, we multiply that times 0.03 to represent that 3%. you're going to see a pretty large number there. You're going to see 1.14 million people would succumb to the coronavirus if we allowed it to grow to the point that we have with the flu each season. So that's just saying if we allowed it to grow to the point where 38 million people got infected, 1.14 million of those folks would succumb to the virus. That's pretty staggering, but you still only think that's only 3% of the total number of people who would catch the virus. And now these are just potential numbers. These aren't even real numbers. This is just to give you an example of flu versus COVID-19 and what the major difference is. Now the good news is in the United States, we have a much better mortality rate than most. Mostly because we have a top-tier healthcare system. And our rate right now is somewhere between 1.4 and 1.5. I'm going to estimate it just a little bit high at 1.5 because it's a little simpler for the math. Basically, all we have to do is divide this number by 2, and you still end up with over 500,000 deaths at 570,000. So you can see why CDC guidelines are so important. You can see why social distancing is important to prevent the spread. Here's the other unique part of COVID-19 that you need to know, and that is it's a brand new virus. We don't know who is, or if anyone is, immune to the virus at all. So we could actually, if we just lived our day-to-day lives as normal, we could actually see that 38 million maybe turn into 48, 58, or more, because we don't know what it would look like in the general populace and as far as that spread. That's why we have to be very cautious. That's why we have to protect our loved ones who are at risk with underlying health conditions. That's why we need to social distance. That's why we need to isolate if we're diagnosed with the COVID-19 virus in order to prevent this spread and in order to prevent something like a spread like we have with the flu. Now, none of these numbers are real, but to kind of bring it home to you, currently there are almost 500,000 current coronavirus infections globally. There are also 23,000 deaths that have already occurred because of those infections. We are only at 500,000 infections, and we have already reached the number of deaths that the common flu would have if it infected 38 million. So that should give you the magnitude of what this could be if we're not careful. Now, I know healthcare systems are getting overwhelmed, and New York is really struggling to keep up. Here's where we step in as folks who are into amateur radio. One, we are purveyors of information. We are folks who like to communicate back and forth and talk about this. And on just about every mode of operation that I have been on in this past week, everyone has mentioned the coronavirus. Every single one. Every person that I contacted yesterday on JS8, they all wanted to talk about, well, how are things in your community? This is how it's going in my community. And it's important that we share that information, but it's important that we also don't create panic. And it's also important that we don't downplay anything. All those CDC guidelines are very important to follow. The social distancing is very important. It keeps the spread at a minimum. Therefore, it keeps our mortality rates down as much as possible. Now, the other great thing is you can socialize while social distancing as someone in amateur radio. So you still get to have that time with folks who are a part of that community every day. The other part of using your radio is if you identify folks who need help, use your network of folks in amateur radio to get them the help they need. There are folks who are in those at-risk categories who have underlying health conditions that may find it difficult to get out. If you can build a network of people via radio that can help them out, do that. Let's get them the help that they need. Again, don't create panic. There's no reason to go out and buy 50 rolls of toilet paper. There's no reason to go out and buy 10 cases of water or whatever it is, or, go fill your cart with whatever just because we're in panic mode. There's no reason to panic at this point. We have not reached these types of numbers. So live life as normal as possible when it comes to grocery shopping and those types of things. But remember, if you don't need to be out, don't be out. If you don't need to touch things, handle things, don't. Don't touch your face. Use hand sanitizer when it's appropriate. And follow those CDC guidelines. It's extremely important. Guys, do me a favor. Like, share, subscribe, hit that button down below. Remember, get your entry in for the FT4 XR drawing. That is tomorrow. We will be back tomorrow. We'll do the drawing. I'm also going to talk a little bit about my rig that you see behind me, what I've got in there, and why I chose those particular items. Thanks for sticking with me. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a good one.